Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to MetrObelisk Radio's Firefly Retrospective series for the last time, quite sadly. This marks our conclusion episode, and in this episode, I want to go over what worked in Firefly and really what didn't. Now let's start off with the positive. Let's start off with what worked in Firefly, and I'll start off with the world building. This show had amazing world building during the 14 episodes. It goes back to one of the rules of writing and TV, and that 90% of your world building needs to be accomplished by the end of your first season. Everyone is probably thinking that I rushed through these episodes, but in reality, all this show became after its premature cancellation was world building. The world was made to look lived in, and it even resembled the real world to a degree. The central planets, aka the Alliance, controlled the vast majority of wealth in the new solar system, and the outer worlds and moons were barely getting by. Now this goes back to the Old West days after the Civil War, where you had the states like Pennsylvania, New York, and Virginia control most of the wealth after that period, and the people that wanted to get away from that fled out west. They dealt with all sorts of danger, from dysentery to the natives wanting to slaughter them. So instead of this show being cowboys versus Indians, it was colonists versus reavers, was all it was. The second thing I want to talk about what worked is the characters. Malcolm and Zoe, fighting on the losing side of the Civil War, flee out west to get away from the very government that they were fighting against. Makes a lot of sense, and it even happened back during that time. A lot of former Confederates went out west. Now, along the way, these other characters came out there, some by choice like Washer and Nara, some were forced like River and Simon, and some we don't know what drove them out there like Shepard and Jane. And that's what made the ensemble believable. It wasn't meant to be the next Odd Couple comedy, even though some situations like that can most likely occur with that group of people. From what I saw, the intent was to show how this group of people was forced to work together to make it in the outer worlds, since you don't have the luxuries of hospitals or the police. These characters had to fend for themselves 99% of the time. Now let's move on to what didn't work, and I only have one thing to really talk about in this section, and that to me was the movie. I believe that the movie killed all momentum for the show moving forward. I don't think the audience for Firefly was big enough back in 2005 to justify a movie with a $40 million budget. Why didn't Universal just take that $40 million budget and greenlight a second season of Firefly? Firefly was showing on the Sci-Fi Network back in 2003, 2004 in reruns, and Universal fully owned the Sci-Fi Network as of 2004. Now I know that Fox owned the Firefly name, so they just called the second season of Firefly Serenity. This is a move that is not unprecedented in sci-fi shows either. The first example I want to use is there was a Canadian sci-fi show called Star Hunter. Now, it premiered in 2000 in Canada and was brought over to the US in 2002. The second season of that show was called Star Hunter 2300 because that was the name that was being used in the United States. Now, if you're unfamiliar with that show, I'll use a way more famous example than that, and that would be Battlestar Galactica. Not the 2004 series, the original series from 1978. Now, Battlestar Galactica was initially a ratings hit, but ABC canceled the show just after one season, and it did not have to do with the lawsuit filed against them from 20th Century Fox, and that's a whole other can of worms that we can discuss at another time. The cancellation of Battlestar Galactica led to a fan letter writing campaign to ABC to reconsider the cancellation of Battlestar Galactica, and ABC gave the green light to a 10-episode second season of Battlestar Galactica called what? Galactica 1980. And that show was set 5 years after the finale of Battlestar Galactica, at the finale of the Battlestar Galactica episode, The Hand of God. So why couldn't Universal just revive Firefly on the Sci-Fi Network and call it Serenity and maybe do a time jump to evolve the threat beyond the Alliance wanting to capture River and Simon? There's a time jump in the movie, but instead of capturing River and Simon, the Alliance now wants to kill them. And the time jump is really unclear. You know, how far into the future did they jump? Did they jump 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 3 decades? We don't know. And, you know, to get back to the Alliance now wants to kill River and Simon, you know, that's it. There's no evolution in galactic plots. Maybe the show evolves from capturing fugitives to erupting into another civil war, and none of that was hinted at the end of the movie, and it's a real damn shame, because there was nowhere that Firefly could have gone after that movie ended. So as I said at the beginning of this episode, this sadly marks the end of our Firefly Retrospective series. So now I just want to do a little bit of reflection on the whole damn thing. This series was not meant to change your opinion on Firefly for those of you who are already fans of the show. If you like the show in the movie, good for you. This retrospective series shouldn't have changed your enjoyment of the show. You can enjoy a show and the subsequent movies despite its flaws. I wanted to make this series for the people who haven't seen Firefly who are maybe on the fence about watching it. All I have to say in that regard is I believe that the show is totally worth your time. After watching this retrospective series, you should have a good idea of what you're getting yourself into. If you like the show and think my criticisms of each episode are bullshit, then great. I don't care. You like what you like. If you start watching the show and it's not for you, then that's fine as well. Just to tie that back to me personally, I remember someone recommended that I should watch the show Community because he found it funny and I gave it a try. I got up to the midpoint of the first season and just found that the show wasn't my kind of humor. Did that stop the guy who recommended the show to me? Did that stop his enjoyment of it? No, he still likes the show, despite the fact that I don't. And I'll end the episode off with this. Don't just say you like something because other people on the internet say that this is one of the best sci-fi shows ever. In my opinion, it's a good show, but it's not the best sci-fi show ever made. There are some great ideas in this show that are horribly executed, and the first one that comes to my mind is the duel that Malcolm gets himself into in the 4th episode, Shindig. Give the show a try and form your own opinion. If after episode 3 you're not getting into it, it's okay to say that the show isn't to your liking. Don't just watch the pilot and go, oh, that's crap, don't want to watch it anymore. Now, I recommend that advice for any TV show that you want to try to get into, not just Firefly. And this has been a really fun retrospective series for me to do personally, even though it was my first. I will probably do something like this again in the future. I just don't know what show to do a retrospective series for. So this is where I'm going to open it up to you guys. If you guys have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments. I would love to see what shows you want me to tackle next. And that's all I have left to say for this series. So have a good day, and I hope to see you guys all next time.